So I remember back in episode number 7, we had discussed 9 different types of depression. And before moving on to the wider aspect of mental illnesses, I wanted to go over each of these 9 different types of depression just so we can go deeper and learn more about specifically how each one affects the person that has it and what they can do to either get help with it or things they can do that will ultimately help make it easier to live with. So of course, starting at the beginning, we are going to start with major, or what some people call it is clinical depression. So let's start at the beginning with the definition. People who suffer from major or clinical depression, most people who have it feel sad or low at some points in their lives. But clinical depression is marked by a depressed mood most of the day, sometimes particularly in the morning, and a loss of interest in normal activities and relationships. Symptoms are present every day for at least 2 weeks. Symptoms might include fatigue or loss of energy most of the day, feelings of worthlessness and guilt, impaired concentration and indecisiveness, insomnia or hypersomnia, which is excessive sleeping, markedly diminished interest or pleasure in the activities that you have enjoyed doing, restlessness or feeling slowed down, recurring thoughts of death or suicide, and significant weight loss or gain. Now, who is at risk for these? Major depression affects about 6.7% of the population over the age of 18. Overall, between 20% and 25% of adults may suffer from an episode of major depression at some point during their lifetime. Now, women are at a higher risk due to hormonal changes during puberty, menstruation, pregnancy, miscarriage, and menopause. Other risks can be biological and can be increased by stress at work, at home, balancing family life with a career, and caring for an aging parent. Even raising a child alone can increase the risks. Now, on the other side of that, for men, most of them are less likely to seek help or even talk about their experiences. Signs for men can include irritability, anger, drugs, and alcohol abuse. Expressing those negative feelings can result in violent behavior both inward and outward. This can result in an increase in illness, suicide, and homicide. Now, you might be thinking, what are some of the things that can trigger depression? Some of the common triggers could be loss of a loved one through death, divorce, or separation, social isolation, or feelings of being deprived, major changes like moving, graduation, a job change, or retirement, personal conflicts in a relationship either with a significant other or a superior, and last is physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. Now again, I would like to say with major or clinical depression, this is something that most people are going to be dealing with. This is also something that somebody could deal with at some point in their life and then it eventually goes away. But for a lot of people, this is the main one that they struggle with every single day and it makes their life hard. And this could be the one that you could have for the rest of your life. So I think sometimes people get confused with depression because it's either something you have or something you don't have, but it is something that at some point in your life you could deal with. So let's talk about how you can be diagnosed for this. You can go to a health professional such as your primary doctor or a psychologist will perform a thoroughly medical evaluation. You can receive a screening from your regular doctor during a visit, but a professional will ask you about your personal and family psychiatric history and ask you some questions that screen for the symptoms of major depression. So the only reason they say, like when you go to the doctor, you can always tell them what you're going through and let them know that you think that you're suffering from depression. But sometimes they won't ask you all the questions of like history and has somebody in your family struggle for it and really dig deep. But when you go to a professional who this is something that they have studied in their field and that's what their job is to do, is to help people figure it out, then they'll start digging deeper into your personal life and maybe if you're exercising, what you're eating, what your day-to-day looks like, and then they'll start asking you questions about your family history so then they can determine if what you're struggling with is depression or not. So the next thing would be, how can this be treated? Depending on your severity of your symptoms, your doctor or psychologist may recommend treatment with some antidepressant medications. They might also suggest that you see a psychotherapist or go to therapy, in which you address your emotional state. Sometimes other medications are added to your antidepressants to boost its effectiveness. Certain medications work better for other people. It may be necessary for your doctor to try different drugs at different doses to determine which medication works best for you. So I think it's either you're going to go two different ways. You're either going to go to the doctor and they're going to prescribe you some antidepressant medicine, and if something doesn't work, then they'll cycle through the different dosage or different medicines that until they can find the one that's going to help you the most. Or for some people, if they don't feel comfortable taking medicine to fix what's going on with them, and for a lot of people, when you take medicine, certain medicines, it can affect your mood and affect how you function every day, and some people don't like the way that makes them feel. So on the other side of that, you can go to a psychotherapist or simply go to therapy. And this is where you would address your emotional state. You would tell them everything that is going on, how your life is going, personal stuff, your family history. And then this would be someone who would sit there and let you get it all out and try to help you move into a path of recovery or move into a path of just being able to deal with your depression more easily every day. And I know I've said it in so many videos, but I do recommend that you do openly talk to your doctor. You try to find a treatment plan that works for you. Again, some people take antidepressants and they work perfectly fine. They don't affect them or their day-to-day life, and they don't feel like weird on them. But there are people on the other side of that who just simply don't want to take medicine. So I do encourage you to tell your doctor that's not how you want to go, but then to reach out and find a therapist that you feel comfortable with. This is another thing I know I said before, but I'll say it again. You can do therapy where you go in and sit down and talk to somebody. You can do it on the internet. There are so many different possibilities for therapy and ways to do it. You can also have phone calls in your car. There's just so many opportunities and so many different ways that you can talk to a therapist or connect with a therapist. And I know I've also said this before too, is that if you don't connect with one therapist, like your first one, you don't feel like you're connected to, then you just go say, I feel like there's not a connection here, or I feel like maybe I need to reach out to somebody else. And you can just keep going to different therapy sessions or talking to different therapists until you find the one that you feel comfortable with, the one that you feel like the conversation flows and they're listening and they're giving you the feedback that you think is going to work best for you. You don't always have to just go to one therapist and feel like the connection's not there. You do what's best for you and you find the person that works at the level that you want to work at. So major depression is the most severe form of depression. So back in episode 7, if you haven't listened to that one, I encourage you to go back because I go through the 9 different types of depression you could be suffering with. And major depression, I'm pretty sure, is the first one, and that's obviously why we're talking about it. It is the one that is most severe. It is the one that most people suffer from. It is the one that you can either deal with and it goes away, or it's the one that people deal with every single day of their life, and they have episodes here and there. They have good days and bad days. This is the most common one that if you go to the doctor, you will probably be described with, unless you're going through any of the other different types that I think eventually, once you learn to cope with it or learn how to live with every day. I think most of the other ones do go away. But for this one, it is something that you deal with all the time and you can deal with for the rest of your life. Major depression or clinical depression can be overwhelming. Spending time with family and friends or doing activities that you once enjoyed may feel exhausting or emotional. Those who struggle with depression may find themselves asking tough questions that could indicate underdiagnosed major depression. So today I want to share with you 5 questions that people with major or clinical depression have been asked and the answers they give to those questions. The first one is, was life this hard before? Depression affects the basic human functioning of a person and hinders everyday life. Mixed together, a tragic event with debilitating negative self-thoughts, insomnia or hypersomnia, overeating or undereating, well-meaning but misunderstanding family and friends, and you've got a recipe for disaster. This is not to mention daily stressors from everyday responsibilities. Soon, beginning each day becomes more difficult, and spending time with your loved ones requires a lot more energy. Major depression also looks like disinterest in activities or hobbies that you previously enjoyed. Over time, the walk through life becomes harder and harder every day. Question number 2 is, what's wrong with me? Many factors contribute to depression. Major events such as death or loss, genetics, serious illness, certain medications, abuse, or financial circumstances can trigger the onset of depression. Often, combinations of these happening simultaneously leading to an increased likelihood of major depression. Therefore, most sufferers are unaware of the compound effects and do not seek help until their symptoms are unbearable. The third question is asking, am I alone? According to the National Institute of Mental Health, 16.1 million people have experienced at least one major depressive episode during the year of 2015. Notable, 1 out of 2 people will have some form of depression in their lifetime. It affects every demographic and is found in all cultures. Number 4 is, why won't I get help? One of the main reasons individuals who may have major depression do not seek help is shame for not being normal. A study from a group in Europe said their researchers found that the impacts of shame for depression towards oneself was greater than the anticipated shame from others. In other words, how you receive yourself influences whether you seek help. Another researcher lists severities, questions about getting started, time and energy, and money as reasons why people do not seek help. While waiting can seem like a good idea, it can lead you to a longer depressive episode or illness or even suicide. In fact, depression is a completely treatable disorder. So don't stop yourself from getting help because you don't want to not be normal. I think this is something that a lot of people can associate with, is that you just want to have a normal life. They want to just live like everybody else does and be happy and have no problems. But for some reason, there is so much shame with having something wrong with you, and you don't want other people to know what's wrong with you. So instead of anticipating what people are going to say, or people are going to be shamed that you're coming out and saying you have an issue, you're starting to shame yourself. You're starting to feel like you just need to act like everybody else because you don't want people to say things about you or to treat you a different way. And because of society, and I think I've said this before, because of social media and the way you look at everything in the world and how different people are posting about things and just everything that's going on, it influences you so much. So you might look at people who are struggling as like something's wrong with them. You start putting them in this group of people that you like don't want to associate with, and it shouldn't be like that. Everybody has a bad day. Everybody struggles. And if you have a mental illness that you're struggling with, you shouldn't have to hide it or feel shamed that you are dealing with it. And this is part of the reason I started this podcast series, is because I just want people who are struggling to know that you can find somebody to open up with. You can find those community people. You can connect with somebody else who knows what you're going through and not feel shamed because you're not like everybody else, because you're not meant to be like everybody else. You're meant to be who you are, and if you struggle, you struggle, and that's okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. So don't shame yourself, and don't be scared that other people are going to shame you for what you're going through. They don't know what you're going through, you don't know what they're going through, and some people just have it harder than others, but we shouldn't feel guilty or like we need to hide what we're going through because we don't want to know what other people are going to have or what they're going to say about what's going on with us. So the last question is, people ask, where do I start? So if you or someone you know is experiencing feelings of sadness, low energy, decreased interest, or difficulty participating in usual activities or hobbies that they once loved, or they're having difficulty getting or staying asleep, they have thoughts of suicide, weight loss or gain, you can consider these options. Screen yourself or a loved one. You could seek out a physician or licensed medical health professional. Psychiatrists or doctors who treat mental health illnesses by finding organic causes and can prescribe you medication. Psychotherapists are skilled in assessing and diagnosing mental health disorders and can provide you with therapy. Licensed therapists are trained to evaluate and treat mental problems through counseling and therapy. You can talk to someone you trust about the changes you've seen in yourself or a loved one. You can become educated more about depression just in general. If you have thoughts of suicide, you can call 1-800-SUICIDE or look up a number for a facility in your area. The last thing you could do is go to the emergency room. The reason I like this list of 9 different options that you have is number 7 is just to become more educated about depression in general. And again, this is why I created this podcast. It's not just for people who are listening, it's also for me. Was struggling with depression and mood swings and feeling sad and hopeless, and at one point, yes, feeling suicidal. When I started coping and working on myself every day and finding those things I needed to do on those days that things were really bad, it opened my eyes to wanting to learn in general what depression is, all the different types, and then it opened me up to wanting to learn more about mental health illnesses overall. So not just depression, anxiety and all the other different things that people struggle with, because the more you can educate yourself and the more you can understand, the more you'll be able to help yourself or to help a friend or to help someone in your life that you love that is struggling with it. Because the more you're educated about it, the more you'll be able to help them with their coping mechanisms, help them on those days that are really bad, just to be there for them and to support them and to let them know that they don't have to walk through what they're going through alone. Because it's hard enough going through what you're going through alone and just sitting in your own thoughts. But if you have somebody you can openly talk to about it with, or someone who can sense or notice those changes in you, it's so important for them to just be able to openly ask you what's going on and for you to respond openly and share what's going on and just talk it through before it gets really bad and you feel like you have no other choices. And that's why I think, again, sensitive subject is that people do take their own lives or commit suicide because they don't know how to take those next steps. They don't know where they need to start, and they just spiral too much until they just can't take it anymore and they feel like that is their way out. It is never a way out. I feel like there are so many different options that you could do to help yourself or help a loved one, and it is, again, very sad for the ones who have lost a loved one or a friend to that outcome, because nowadays, I said this before, is that we're just getting a little bit better with talking about mental illnesses and sharing that you can find somebody to talk to, you can find a community, you can reach out to a doctor, go to a therapist. There is always an option before taking the option that will take your life away and there's no coming back from. It's hard. Depression isn't something easy to live with, but neither is any of the other mental disorders. It's something that cripples people's lives and is just hard overall for you to deal with sometimes, but when we can find those open conversations, those people we feel comfortable talking with, overall, you can start bettering your life every day. So in general, if you know somebody who's struggling and you want to figure out how you can help them or find ways to just educate yourself, I promise you, you can find anything on Google and you can just look it up and be able to help the person you love no matter what they're struggling with. So the more educated you get, the more you'll be able to reach out and help the ones you love. So depression can feel like it has taken away your natural resilience to life's challenges. It can make you feel powerless. However, you can take action. You can get your life back. And I just hope this episode can help you better understand what major depression is all about and also help those who might be holding back from seeking the help they truly deserve. So like always, I will leave you with, you are never alone, and that I love you.